And it's a very good morning to the Gelding on Blue Diamond Stakes Day. Got to be excited about that, racing at Caulfield, Gelding, just down the road from you.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Yes, Group 1 racing tomorrow. 3 Group 1s, in fact, at Caulfield tomorrow, Professor. Should I get on a hobby horse early, or should I?
Oh, please do, Gelding. Please, hobby horse as long as you like.
Okay, well, Professor, we've got the Blue Diamond Stakes, which is fantastic. $2 million race for 2-year-olds. Fantastic the way the Melbourne Racing Club has developed this race over the last 34 odd years or something. It's been going. It's a fantastic concept. It's regarded probably as the best 2-year-old race in Victoria. Professor, we then go to what I regard as probably the Melbourne Racing Club's most prestigious sprint event, with over 100 years of history in the Oakley Plate. Everyone knows, in whether they follow racing or not, they run like Oakley Platers. It's a traditional saying. It's been around for ages. This is a time-honoured race, a handicap race, 4 sprinters over 1,100 at Caulfield. They just go around the one turn, Professor, so it's a bit of helter-skelter. This race is worth $750,000.
Is that all?
Now, that you wouldn't mind winning a race where a total value is $750,000, but if you take that into account, the winner probably just gets over $400,000 for a Group 1 time-honoured race, Professor. You have pop-up races like the mile that they're talking about worth $3 million. They have champion stakes days now that they can add $3 million races. This is a race with 100 plus years of history. Surely this should be given more prize money and given a better, a higher position in the calendar where more horses do appease to run by. Like you look at Sydney tomorrow, Professor, they have a group 2 just for 3-year-olds worth 400,000 as their main race. This is just 350,000 less than a time-honoured 100-year-old Group 1 race. So look, I think the Melbourne Racing Club, and particularly Racing Victoria, should make this the second most important sprint race in Victoria in the autumn.
Agreed, Gelding. Agreed.
You have this and you have the new market. The Lightning gets a fantastic field, which is good, but let's try and encourage all this. I'm just having a look for the sprint race at Rose Hill, Professor. There's a 1,300 and 1,100 worth 160. That's about it, Professor. I wouldn't have thought there's any race. Oh, there's an 1,100 race 4 worth. Oh no, that's only for 2-year-olds. So none for the open horses. So you're not contesting, or you're not taking any horses away from Sydney. Why this race isn't of equal value to the Blue Diamond run on the day, both worth $2 million, I would think would be most appropriate.
Yeah, 2 words, Gelding: do better. That's what we say to Racing Victoria. Do better. Anyway, Gelding, as we said, Caulfield, 10 race card. The first at 12.15, the last at 5.35. Feature race, the $2 million Blue Diamond Stakes. The track currently a good 4, Gelding. The rail. Now, Gelding, the rail. Now, is or is not Oh, now my hobby horse is or is
Yes.
not the Blue Diamond Stakes one of the premier racing days at Caulfield for the year?
Outside maybe Caulfield Cup, Caulfield Guineas in the spring. This is the Melbourne's racing day, main racing day in the autumn. That's how they go about advertising it. It's the way they go about pricing all their facilities on the day as their major autumn day. And they're not shy in charging, saying how important a day it is and how big it is. So we'll charge accordingly because it's so good racing. And yet you can't even have the course in the true position.
Rail out 4 metres, Gelding. How can the rail not be in the true position? How do you have it so that the rail's not in the true position on one of the big days of the year?
Well,
why have a rail in a true position? Why have it exist at all?
Can I go back to what I asked you before off air? How can I ask a logical man an unlogical question? An unreasonable question.
There you go, Gelding. We've fired 2 salvos already.
Common sense will tell you this, Professor, wouldn't it? I hope it would anyway. If you have a premier event, your main event, you work the support programs back around that. So the directive should be Blue Diamond Day, Oakley Plate Day, the rail is in the true position. All these meetings leading up to it, arrange so have the track in all various positions if you want to. Personally, I'd leave the track in the true position every day, Professor, and then let the jockeys figure out where the best running is. But that's another whole issue. If you're going to move the track rail around, main days it's in the true, days leading up to it, you move it around so it hopefully doesn't affect the track. I would say common sense, Professor.
Yes. Well, another one, Gelding. There's our second do better for the day. Do better. All right. What
was the name, Dr. Turf, or in a very other show under a previous name for the Melbourne Racing Club? What did he call them?
The Very Amateur Turf Club.
That's right, Professor. I'll rest my case.
All right, Gelding, what are your 2 best bets for tomorrow's racing?
Oh, Professor, I'm going back. My first tip is in race 2, number 7, Midtown Boss. This is a horse that cost me 2 weeks ago, Professor, when I tipped it on That's Racing for our listeners. When we're a bit short there. We're around about the even money mark. We did get 250 early on, but it started even money. But unfortunately, I had it going in a nice little parlay, Professor, which was unfortunately a win parlay. And when they run second, it's an old dear, Professor. You go, old dear, what happened there? This horse has run very well. It ran second, was beaten by a long neck at Caulfield over the same distance, so of 1,100 metres, Professor. All I can say is that hopefully it can go a long neck better, Professor, this time and get the cash. And this time, instead of getting round about the 250 mark, Professor, you should be able to hop on round about the $3 mark. So, which should be very nice to start the day. Then, Professor, look, I'm leaving the Blue Diamond Stakes and the Oakley Plate alone. I'm going the other Group 1, the Futurity Stakes, Professor. Again, not a hard tip, but again, what we like to do here for the listeners is to try to get them a couple of multiple winners. So hopefully that will help their parlays, Professor, which we're so fond of. So my second tip will be race 7, number 1, Mr. Brightside, trained by the Hayes boys, to be ridden by Craig Williams, who rode it beautifully last start to just get up and win the All Stakes at Caulfield over 1400. Here it is 2 weeks later, meeting many of the same horses over 1400 at Caulfield. The Hayes boys have said the horses improved since its last run. That's good enough for me, Professor. Looking, if he can get 150, I'd be taking it now and placing it in as a multiple leg in many, many parlays.
Sounds like good advice, Gelding.
And you like, Professor?
Yeah, Gelding, I'm going early tomorrow. Race 1, the Parlay, Very Elegant. Gelding, we should say something about Very Elegant, who passed away during the week giving birth. A great horse that a multiple Group 1 winner, and a horse that you and I had some very nice successes with for GM Racing.
For GM Racing and for That's Racing the Show, the listeners would well know that it was one of our favourite horses, Professor. No matter who was riding it, nothing better than the 15-1 we got in the Melbourne Cup. That one. So, it was a horse that, even though, it was a horse that was the class horse over a distance at that time. It was up against them all. It did very well. Won its Melbourne Cup by 3 lengths, going away again at the very juicy odds, Professor. I'd like to mention that again, a 15-1 for some of the bashers out there of us that say we like the short ones, Professor. We were on at 15s and did very well out of it. So she was a fantastic horse. Had many trainers, Professor. So was around a few, but when Chris Waller got her, he finally settled her down beautifully and certainly got the best out of her. And the foals coming out of it would have been worth a fortune, Professor.
Yeah,
So
no more. Yeah.
She was taken over to Ireland to be bred to south of the seas, I think. And died of complications with the first foal. So a very valuable worth mare, a very valuable horse. But as we said, we got a lot of enjoyment out of her.
Oh, very much so, Gelding. And so that race is an open class over 2,000 metres. I like in the race, Gelding, horse number 1, Dunkel, coming out of barrier 4. It's had 10 starts for 7 wins and 2 placings, so a great record. Only been out of the money once. 70% win rate, a 90% place rate. Won its last start at Moonee Valley at the end of December. Ridden by Billy Egan. Ran second at Caulfield the start before that, Gelding, so it's got good form. It's had a bit of a spell, freshened up. It's also a Group 1 winner, Gelding. It won the SA Derby.
I was going to say it's a Derby winner, Professor.
Yeah, and it's won over the distance. So there's a lot to like about this. You can get $3.10 on this one at the moment, Gelding. I'd probably take the $3.10 fixed at the moment. I think it'll start shorter tomorrow. As I said, Billy Egan in the saddle, he's got an 11% career win rating, and Paddy Payne, trainer, he's got a 16% career win rate. So, as I said, number 1 in race 1, Dunkel. Second, go on. Yes, Gelding?
I was just going to say there, Professor, seems to have a little bit Dunkel on these other horses, and I would be telling the listeners, as you have just done, Professor, get on as quickly as you can. Grab those odds now while you can, because I'm sure it will shorten up before race time.
My second selection, Gelding, is in race 3, the Angus Armanasco Stakes, Gelding. Now, some of our younger viewers might not know who Angus Armanasco was.
Would you like to fill them in, or would you like me to, Professor?
Oh, I dip my lid to you, Gelding. You'll be able to give a far better summary than I could.
Armanasco, many years ago, was known as the King of the Kids at Caulfield. He trained at Caulfield, just up in Burong Road there, Professor. old building just adjoining to the track. Had many good 2-year-olds, Professor. One that comes to mind that was very good was Sedative. He was known as, he didn't mind having a little plunge on the horses, Argus Arbanasco, and his horses, when the money was on, they normally run very well. So an icon trainer at Caulfield, where there is no longer any stables. In fact, Professor, what would probably be of interest probably to listeners that they could relate to is that after Armanasco retired from training, Peter Moody took over his stables. So Black Caviar, when it was racing, Peter Moody had it in a stable that was a little bit bigger than the normal stable to give the horse a little bit more room, which Armanasco had especially built when he was building his stables, Professor. So there was a man in front of his times, just giving the horse a little bit more room to move around.
Well, Gelding, that's an excellent segue, because my second selection is in race 3. As I said, the Angus Armanasco Stakes. It's a 1,400-metre race it's a Group 2 for 3-year-old fillies. I like in this one horse number 2, Autumn Angel. And Autumn Angel, Gelding, is trained by Peter Moody.
Your trainer?
Yes, Peter Moody and Kath Coleman.
Yes. That would be just a little bit of nostalgia going to it, Professor. I'm sure Peter Moody would be quite happy to win the Armanasco Stakes.
I think he would be, Gelding.
Yeah.
Now, Autumn Angel's a Group 3 winner. It's also first up, and it's previously won first up. It won first up at Sandown in August last year. It won the Group 3 Ethereal in October. So good preparation for this. Lot to like about it. And Billy Egan is again riding. So I like that. Peter Moody, the local trainer. Got to go with Peter Moody, the local trainer.
And Professor, a bit of a little bit closer tie to it. Wearing the same silks as your horse. A Wiley Dell's Eel horse.
I was just about to say, what could that possibly mean, Gelding?
Yes. So it's a Wiley Dell's Eel horse. So Wiley, as we know, we're associated with Wiley, and we think he's a very professional operator. And Peter Moody and himself are creating a very good little partnership together with their horses. And Autumn Angel may be a nice little way to get. What odds do you think we'll get, Professor? Will we get the 350?
It's still showing 350 fixed, Gelding. So
good.
So I think you will get your $3.50.
I'd be taking both of yours now, Professor Dunkel and Autumn Angel.
Yeah, I wouldn't wait overnight, Gelding. I think they'll start a lot shorter tomorrow morning.
I think if we get Dunkel at the $3 or Midtown Boss at the $3 and Autumn Angel at the $3.50, I think the punters have done some good shopping. And then if you can hop on Mr. Brightside at $1.50 and a nice little parlay, Professor, it might look very good by the end of the day.
Might be a very successful day, Gelding. So my two selections are race 1, horse 1, Dunkel, race 3, horse 2, Autumn Angel. Now, the Professor's parlay, Gelding, we got the horse leg up last week, Imperatriz, and Arsenal absolutely smashed their opponents 5-0. Manchester City, Gelding, 1-1. I couldn't believe it.
Professor, as we've said many times on this show, I do worry about the EPL and some of these top sides that you pick, and whether they just have lulls, I'm not sure, or whether they just take things a bit easier, or whether sides get up a bit more because they're playing a higher name club, or whether they just deliberately stack the defence to block the thing and not try to win the game, but try to just draw the game. Yeah, it's happened to us a couple of times now, Professor.
It has, Gelding. So Manchester City are now off my list. I'm not picking them anymore. They can take a hike. So, all right. So tomorrow's
All I
parlay.
could say after saying last week, Professor, and getting and getting the horse up was, oh dear.
Yes. Oh dear. So, all right. This week, Gelding, race 7, horse 1, Mr. Brightside's the agreed bet of the day. As you said, Gelding, the best horse going round at Caulfield tomorrow. So we've got to have that one in our parlay. And let's parlay that into the NBA. It's back after the All-Star game, Gelding. Oklahoma City Thunder to beat the Washington Wizards. Oklahoma City going very well up near the top of the Western Conference. Washington Wizards not having a great season down near the bottom. They're currently showing $1.06, the Thunder. And we'll parlay that into the Golden State Warriors to beat the Charlotte Hornets. Golden State mid-table in the West, but Charlotte Hornets well down in the East. The current odds, Gelding, the win parlay showing 2-1, the place parlay showing 3-2.
Oh, well, Professor, let's hope we pick up from last week. After I was waiting for the thumbs up sign to come after the horse got up and the other soccer club had got up quite comfortably. I was feeling very, very confident, but not to be.
No, it was not to be. But Gelding, I've just got a feeling about tomorrow. I think GM Racing might be in for a day out, which would be very pleasing for both of us.
Could be a good day tomorrow, Professor.
All right, Gelding. Well, until next week, and that's racing. It's good luck.
And good punting.